Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about three specific things. Those three things is that there is one sole job for an organization, two is exceptional people execute, and number three, no amount of coaching, training, mentorship will help you. And we'll dive into what each of those means here on this episode of the podcast. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. The one job for every single organization, right? That you have one job. And the typical response, right, like in business school, is that the job and the priority of an organization is to make money, right? To profit, to provide dividends to shareholders. That's the job of an organization. And I really don't believe that that's the thing, because if your sole goal is to make money, then you're going to over time deteriorate to the point where you don't make any money. And if you keep it the kind of your main mission, your core focus, the main thing, then over the long period of time, you will always have money coming in. A really good example of this is Boeing. So Boeing, prior to the McDonnell Douglas merger, was a great engineering company. It was known for engineering. It was known for quality products. It was known for innovation. And then after McDonnell Douglas and Boeing merged, I believe that the CEO of McDonnell Douglas became the CEO of Boeing. And through that, Boeing started to really cut corners. They were doing it for profit maximization, not for engineering excellence. And what this basically culminated in have been a few events. One is that of the 737 MAX, where because they shortcutted regulatory approval processes, you had those 737 MAX crashes because, again, it was a software glitch that, because of the extended length of the airplane, didn't calculate things correctly from that. So, again, because they shorted regulatory scrutiny, you then had crashes and fatalities. The next was in the DEI of Boeing and having the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they made a team of people that were just not qualified to be there at all on the door latches. And you have now doors blowing off of airplanes, right? Big problem. And this is because you went for profit maximization, not for engineering excellence. And if you stayed with engineering excellence, then you would continue to make good profits over a very long period of time. You wouldn't make exceptional profits in any given year, but you would continue to do very well over a long period, right? Your returns might be, and I don't know Boeing's historical returns, but let's just say 15% versus 20% or 25%. So in a given year, yes, the company's not going to return as much. And what this comes down to is, and this is where like a lot of people have problems, is in the corporate greed of those CEOs, because their compensation is heavily tied to the stock price of the company. And when you have, exceptional years, you get exceptional bonuses. And most Fortune 500 CEOs, their tenure is 5 years or less. So they're not in it for the long haul, and you don't align long-term goals and objectives to short-term, quarterly, annual financials, especially when you're dealing with publicly traded companies. So big thing to look out for in that. So I say all of that to say that the one job of an organization not only is, mission excellence, but the one real job is to train your replacement, right? The job of an organization is to train people. And so if you take that as your sole mission, right, as an engineer, my mission is to, and my job is to train more engineers, right? Not only does this move me up in the organization because I backfill every position behind me, right? And then those people backfill the positions behind them, and you just have a continual backfilling of positions, right? So the people that I hire eventually will train the people that they hire, will eventually train the people that they hire. And you create this, it's going to be a natural hierarchy, but you create a self-fulfilling machine in creating the next person for the job behind them. And so if you continually train people, you continually train yourself and improve yourself, then you can move up within the organization. People backfill the spots to learn the things that you learned, and so that they can over time move up within the organization, right? They can become, right, you hire somebody in as a drafter, entry level person in an engineering firm. We're going to use that as an example. Hire somebody in as an entry level person. They do all those things. They get their license, right? And over time, they've learned a bunch of stuff in those 4 years between becoming from a new graduate engineer to becoming a licensed engineer. So they've learned all this stuff. Now they're licensed. Now they can lead projects, presumably, right? If you taught them well enough in those 4 years. So they become capable of running projects, doing things on their own, signing and sealing drawings. And then they train the next person, the next new grad out of college. They're now able to train them up in those 4 years. They become licensed. And then that person, might eventually have enough skills to then lead a team, to then manage a division, to then lead the company, right? Like they can move up through the ranks. So if our job, and we take our job seriously as an organization, as an individual, is to create the person behind us, right? Create ourselves, and therefore allowing us the abilities to then create the person behind us, that gives us a tremendous amount of abilities to grow within the organization, right? We move up, the person behind us moves up, and that creates just this ladder effect of becoming an excellent organization, right? You're focused on training, you're focused on knowledge, because at the end of the day, every organization comes down to the people that are within it. The organization with the best people will have the best organization. And you create the best people by training them, by imparting wisdom and knowledge in the things that you do, and making them excellent at the things that they do, so that you can be excellent at the things that you're best at, right? You teach them to do the things that sometimes maybe you don't want to do. Sometimes you just don't have time for, and you need assistance in, right? And that's how organizations grow, is you hire for specific slots, specific things. And in engineering, right, we hire other engineers so we could do more projects. We teach them the things. We give them the easy projects to begin with. And then as they grow, we teach them all the stuff that we learn on the hard projects. And then they can take on more and more hard projects themselves, allowing them to grow within the organization. The next thing that I want to talk about is exceptional people execute. This ties right into point number one in the one job for an organization is training, right? Becoming the best that you can possibly become at whatever it is that you do. So exceptional people execute, right? The way that I got to this is when you think about what do exceptional people have that I don't, right? What is the thing that an exceptional person has that I'm missing within myself? And you kind of go down the list. Well, they don't have more time in a day, right? We all have the same 24 hours. They maybe allocate it better, have more help and assistance around it, which just comes down to they execute on the things that they know they need to execute on, but they don't have any more time than us, right? They're not twice as smart. They're maybe twice as experienced, but their God-given IQ is not twice as great as ours, right? I have access to the same internet that they do. So the knowledge is out there for me to gain. I just don't necessarily have it yet, but it's, again, that gap isn't twice. So they have the same time. They aren't twice as smart, twice as good, whatever. But so then what separates them from the rest of us, right? The people that we admire and look up to, what separates them from maybe us and the things that we're doing? And the only thing that I really come down to is that they're executing at a far higher level. They're getting more things done. They're making more decisions on a daily basis than I am, right? That's it. That's all that they're doing is they're doing more. Exceptional people execute. And if you're able to execute at a high level, you're able to accomplish a lot of things on a daily basis over a long period of time. There's no way that you can't also be excellent, right? This comes down purely to execution, right? To doing the things. And then over time, you're going to become exceptional at doing them because you're going to get the training, knowledge, and expertise that, mentorships, training, and the internet all provide to us on a regular basis. So by getting exceptional training and executing, you're good, right? Now you just got to do it for a long period of time. And that's really the key in here, is that in doing it for a long period of time, you're probably not going to see any rewards. You're going to have to do it without much feedback, and you're just going to have to keep going, as hard and as tough as that might be. So just know that the doing needs to be done, and the only way to do that is to sit down and do it, right? Unencumbered. And like we talked about in the last episode, is you got to do it without any distractions. You got to put that phone away, and you got to do the things you need to do, right? Most of the time spent on our phones is not productive action. So we need to make more productive action in our lives. And through that, we'll become, quote, exceptional. Really, we're just going to have the results that we desire in our own lives because we've done the things that we know we need to do. And next, no amount of coaching, training, or mentorship will help you. And here's what I mean by that. So I have a dear friend, and he said something to me at lunch the other day that was pretty troubling. And he had been going and is going through a rough period in his life. Tried to be there for him in the ways that I can, went and saw him. And with this, he doesn't live near me, but try to call him on a regular basis, check in, see how he's doing, see how things are going. And again, going through a very rough period in his life. Just things are not going his way, right? On personally, professionally, like you pretty much name it, cards just aren't falling his way. And so in that, we were at lunch, and this kind of struck me, and I didn't know how to take it at the time. But he's like, man, I've had more coaching, more training, more mentorship, more people pour into me than like anyone else here. And yet I still wanted to kill myself. Yeah. Think about that. Right. Somebody who's had tons of coaching, tons of mentorings, tons of training, tons of spiritual help, right? Gone through all of it, done a lot of things, and yet still didn't want to be here. That's heavy. So what I'm saying through this is, no amount of any of that will help you if you don't want to be helped, right? Like he's gone through all of this, yet for some reason that training wasn't there, right? And granted, well, it was there in a way because he's still here. So that training that he went through at least helped him to not take his own life, right? To still be here another day. And so yet he's still in a bad place, right? He's bad place mentally. Uh, he's been able to maintain his physical, but in relationships and business and a lot of life, just not good, man. But it comes back to kind of number one and number two. Yeah, he's taken the training. Yeah, he's poured into himself. Yes, he's done a lot of development. He's done all those things. He's, learned a ton of stuff. He kind of fell apart in number two, right? In the execution on a daily basis for a long period of time. Now, looking at him, I mean, the dude is just yoked. I mean, fit, strong, fast, physically specimen, dude's got it all together. But on the rest of it, not so much. And so that execution, he's been executing for decades in his physical life. He has not been executing, and really it's been like a couple years that he made some life transitions and decided to try some other things, and it just didn't go that well in that transition. And because of that, he's now again 2 years later kind of suffering through that. And so what this comes down to is he, in that these last few years, did not execute on a daily basis in the things for business, for relationships, for those types of things. He was kind of wandering lost. And so I say this to, the people that go to conferences all the time, the people that take all this training and do all these things. And I've been one of them in phases of my life, right? Where I wanted to absorb all this knowledge, to put into myself everything that I possibly could. And over time, I've gotten now to a point where I've absorbed a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. I still read on a daily basis. That is still one of my habits. And so, but there's becoming less and less that I haven't heard before. And so, and a lot of this comes down to point number two, where you have to execute. You have to do the things that you need to do, and you need to do them on a daily basis. Like that's it. Those are the only things for you to do and accomplish to move you to the next place. And so I say this in that training is important, right? It is the number one job of an organization, is to train, to empower, to improve your people. Because if you don't have excellent people, you will not have an excellent organization. To have an excellent organization, to have excellent people, you have to do and execute on a daily basis. You got to do the things you need to do, right? It's that simple. And to limit the time, limit any procrastination, right? The things you need to do, you do them as soon as you can, right? You eliminate any delay period between those two things. That's it. That's all there is to it. And so the more the things that you do, the more that you learn and improve yourself, and then implement those actions, those learnings, those trainings into your life and how you do things, the better off you're going to be. And it really becomes that simple. So, guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Go out, train people, right? Improve yourself, improve others. Do that religiously, constantly continue to improve yourself and your organization. Number two, exceptional people execute. That's all there is to it. And then no amount of training, mentorship, personal development, spiritual guidance is going to help you if you don't implement it. So, in the words of, I think, Chad Wright, well, at least the Navy and pretty much every special forces organization, execute, execute, execute. Until next time.